This is not just backlash, this is a full-blown collapse of an illusion unfolding in real time, and it starts with one brutal question echoing across Australia. Why are 40,000 people suddenly saying they don't want Meghan and Harry anywhere near their country? Because something shifted, something cracked, and the story behind that crack is far messier than anyone in their camp wants to admit.
Just rack off. That's what furious Australians are going to be saying to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle after this astonishing leak has just proved that the couple have been lying about the security costs on next week's fake royal tour.
Why on earth should these two be given taxpayer-funded security in the first place? They are no longer working royals.
Australian viewers of the Mark Dolan show don't want to see Harry and Meghan. The reason why it went down well in 2018, Paul, is because the Australian public didn't know Meghan Markle very well. Well, they know her now. And what do they know her to be? A gold-digging grifter.
I love you.
Australians don't want them there. They're not interested. And they've raised a petition in Australia to say, look, if they do come, free country, but if they do come, they're coming as private citizens. This is not a royal tour, and we do not want a single penny of Australian taxpayers' money spent on the police protecting these two.
It began quietly, almost invisibly. A petition launched by a Sydney-based group Beyond Australia back in November 2025. For months, nothing, barely 200 signatures. Dead, ignored, like a whisper no one heard. And then suddenly, mid-March, an explosion. 10,000, 30,000, 40,000. The numbers didn't just rise, they surged violently like a dam had burst somewhere behind the scenes. What triggered that spike? What changed? Because movements don't just wake up overnight without a spark. And the people behind it weren't asking for drama. They asked one surgical question to the highest levels of government: will a single taxpayer dollar fund this visit? That question hung in the air. And then came something even louder than outrage: silence.
The PR and the pomp and pageantry almost of being part of the royal family, but they don't really want any of the responsibility, do they? They like to turn up to events, have a few photos taken, look like the charming, lovely people that they wish to present themselves as, and then go home, then go back to California.
No politician stepped forward. Not one. Not to defend, not to reassure, not even to spin. 3 major Australian agencies distanced themselves immediately. No involvement, no comment, no responsibility. And suddenly, the absence of support became the story. Because when power goes quiet, it's rarely accidental. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because 40,000 signatures in a country of 26 million? On paper, it doesn't sound like a revolution. But influence isn't always about majority, it's about pressure, optics, narrative. And this rewrote the narrative completely.
Can I just tell you that Australia has tackled illegal immigration very successfully, and I think given the fact that Harry and Meghan are on their way, I think it's time to reactivate Operation Sovereign Borders, Paul. Airstrikes, get the boats out.
Because back in 2018, the story was very different. Australia didn't question them, Australia embraced them. Remember that image, Harry standing in the rain, no umbrella, speaking to drought-stricken farmers. It felt raw, human, real. Thousands showed up, not because they paid, but because they believed, because they thought this was different. And that moment became symbolic, a prince connecting with people without barriers. But now, fast forward to April 2026. Same country, same message about mental health, same Harry, and yet everything feels inverted.
Well, he loves it, doesn't he? I mean, that probably is what keeps him going. He's so sad and miserable in his own life because he's basically Meghan's spare handbag that he just feels better when he, slags off, as you said. He loves criticising everybody except for himself.
Because now there's a price tag, a very precise one. Platinum tickets at $2,378, gold at $1,978, and then, just 9 days before the event, 2 new tiers quietly appear. Delegate Pass, Virtual Pass, slashed prices. Why the sudden drop? Why the sudden urgency? Events don't usually adjust like that unless something isn't going according to plan. And nobody is explaining it. Not the organizers, not Harry's team, not anyone. Then the numbers start telling a different story. Reports surface. Speaker fees, around $50,000. Replacement bookings after another name gets pulled into controversy. Words like Hail Mary begin floating around. And suddenly the narrative isn't about impact anymore, it's about survival. Because when ticket tiers drop days before launch, it doesn't signal demand, it signals desperation. And here's where the contradiction sharpens into something almost impossible to ignore. The same man who once told struggling farmers that asking for help was powerful is now delivering that same message behind a paywall waterfall that most of those same people could never afford. The rain is gone. The openness is gone. Now it's curated, controlled, tiered. When did access become exclusive? When did empathy come with a VIP upgrade? And just when you think the story couldn't get more complicated, another thread appears. A retreat, a luxury one. Sydney, April 17th to 19th. Organized by one woman, Gemma O'Neill. And her timeline? It doesn't just raise questions, it practically demands them. Property purchases, financial collapse, debt reports, over $500,000 owed, mostly to the tax office. Then suddenly, Meghan Markle announced as headline speaker for a $2,699 per ticket event. Pause there, because that sequence isn't random. It's structured. October, property purchase. November, company liquidation. February, admission of no savings. February again, official creditor report. March, Meghan announcement. That's not coincidence, that's a chain. And every link in that chain pulls the story deeper into something no one is addressing publicly. And yet nobody from the Sussex side seems to have asked the most obvious question. Who exactly are we aligning with here? Because while legal entities might be separate on paper, perception doesn't work like that. Optics don't care about technicalities. And when audiences start connecting dots, real or perceived, it creates something far more dangerous than facts. It creates doubt. Then comes the experience itself. What does $2,699 actually buy you? A shared room, a gala dinner, yoga sessions, a conversation with Meghan. And if you want privacy, that's extra. Always extra. Because exclusivity now has layers. Pay more, get more access. Pay less and share your space with a stranger. And then the moment that changes everything, a journalist, Ariana Peski, buys a ticket. Full price. No shortcuts, just like any regular attendee. She asks a simple question, can she keep her own room? She asks for a tax invoice. Routine, normal, expected. And that's when everything flips. Her ticket is refunded, her access revoked. Reason? She works in media. Because that's not how genuine demand behaves. That's how perception management behaves. It creates urgency. It manufactures scarcity. And when people start noticing the shift, when they begin comparing timelines, when they see that the hotel itself never actually showed those dates as fully booked, the illusion begins to unravel in real time. What looked like overwhelming demand starts to feel like something else entirely. Something staged, something carefully engineered. And then comes the detail that flips the entire conversation from questionable to deeply uncomfortable. You pay thousands, you travel, you arrive, and then a stranger walks into your room and says, we're sharing. That's the standard package. That's the baseline. Privacy becomes a luxury upgrade. And empowerment, this word that gets thrown around so easily, suddenly comes with conditions. Pay more to feel it. Pay more to experience it fully. Otherwise, accept the compromise. And this is where the narrative starts collapsing under its own weight. Because empowerment doesn't ask you to share a bed with a stranger. Empowerment doesn't filter out journalists after taking their money. Empowerment doesn't quietly adjust pricing tiers days before an event to keep attendance afloat. That's not empowerment. That's strategy. That's monetization. That's control. Then comes the response. The moment the Sussex camp finally breaks its silence. March 26th. A statement that should have calmed everything, clarified everything, closed the story. Instead, it did the exact opposite. Because instead of reassurance, instead of diplomacy, instead of even a hint of understanding, what came out was dismissal. Sharp, cold, almost mocking. The petition, a moot point. The concern, ridiculous. And the people behind it, reduced to numbers in a sarcastic equation about how many Australians didn't sign. And that's where it backfires. Because when you reduce 40,000 people to a punchline, you don't silence them. You amplify them. You validate the frustration. You pour fuel on something that was already burning. And almost instantly, the numbers climb again. Thousands more signatures. Not because of the petition itself, but because of the response to it. That's the moment everything shifts. Because now it's no longer just about money, or tickets, or events. It becomes about tone, about respect, about how people feel they're being spoken to. And once that breaks, it's almost impossible to repair. Then comes another layer, another quiet decision that says more than any public statement ever could. No walkabouts. Not one. Not in Sydney. Not in Melbourne. Not anywhere. The official reason? Security costs. Public order. But think about that. In 2018, they walked into crowds. Thousands of people. No barriers. No filters. Real interaction. Real connection. And now, nothing. No public access. No spontaneous moments. No chance for the same people who once welcomed them to even get close. So what changed? Because security concerns don't appear out of nowhere. They reflect anticipation, expectation, and maybe fear. Fear of what reception might actually look like this time, because applause can't be guaranteed anymore. And silence, well, silence can be deafening. But boos are uncontrollable. And there's no VIP tier that shields you from that. And here's the part that quietly reframes everything else. The official itinerary gets released. Children's hospital, Invictus event, shelter visit, sports appearances, carefully selected, carefully framed. But one thing is missing, completely absent. The retreat, Meghan's headline event, the one charging thousands per ticket. It doesn't appear anywhere in the official plan. It's treated separately, almost like it doesn't exist within the same narrative. Why? Because once you separate it, you control how it's perceived. You isolate the commercial from the charitable, the business from the brand. But the public doesn't separate it that way. They see one story, one timeline, one pattern, and that pattern keeps circling back to the same uncomfortable question. Who is paying for what and who is profiting from it? Because the petition is about taxpayer money. The retreat is about private money. But the line between those two isn't as clean as the statement suggests. Not when security, logistics, and public resources are still part of the equation, and not when the optics blur those boundaries in ways that no official wording can fully erase. And then there's the deeper tension, the one that doesn't get addressed directly but lingers in every detail. In 2018, they were seen as part of something bigger, a system, a tradition, a public role. In 2026, they've stepped away from that, but they're still carrying its image, still using its language, still drawing on its symbolism. And that creates a contradiction that people can feel even if they can't always articulate it, because you can't fully leave something behind and still benefit from its power at the same time without people noticing. And that's where the final shift happens, because this is no longer just about one event, one petition, one trip. It becomes about perception versus reality, about the gap between what's being presented and what people are actually seeing. And that gap is widening. The petition, the pricing tiers, the sudden ticket changes, the financial timelines, the banned journalist, the sarcastic response, the absence of public interaction, the separation of commercial events from official appearances. Each piece on its own, manageable, explainable, but together they form a pattern. And patterns are hard to ignore because patterns don't shout, they accumulate quietly, relentlessly, until suddenly they're impossible to unsee. And right now, that pattern is pointing towards something the Sussex camp hasn't fully addressed. Not publicly, not directly, not convincingly. And until they do, the questions won't stop. They'll multiply, they'll evolve, they'll dig deeper. Because at the center of all this noise, all this speculation, all this carefully managed silence, sits one simple, unresolved tension. If everything is truly private, truly transparent, truly above question, then why does every new detail feel like it opens another door instead of closing one? And maybe that's the real story here. Not the petition, not the retreat, not even the trip itself, but the growing sense that what's being shown on the surface doesn't fully match what's happening underneath. And the closer you look, the more that disconnect starts to reveal itself. Because this isn't over, not even close.